Okay, so it's the start of a week. My week starts on a Saturday afternoon, and my husband has surprised me with we're going out and we're going in the Jag. So yeah, I am planning on reading several books this week, but I'm just pulling stuff off my shelf because I finished my February TBR, and I'm just pulling up my stuff off my shelf because I am actually waiting for the Women's Prize for Fiction to come out, and I don't want to commit to reading any books. But we are coming into March, so I will be reading some more of Middlemarch. I'll be reading some more of The Count of Monte Cristo. There'll be lots of little bits and pieces that I'll be reading. I possibly can be finishing off Charles Dickens' Nicholas Nickleby, so I should have that done as well. But this is the beginning of my weekly vlog. I'm at the service station, we're putting fuel in, and we're going for a drive. I'm going out for dinner, and I'm going to get to see Savannah. I haven't seen her for several weeks. I've spoken to her on the phone, but I haven't seen her for several weeks, so I'm super excited about that. All right, I will check in and let you know what I am reading or what I've been reading. All right, see you soon. So last night, of course, I sat up again to finish a book. I'm doing this as I was originally doing this as a buddy read with another friend, but she's got some stuff happening in her personal life, so she's dropped out of the buddy read. Anyway, Sid from A Storytime with Sid, I am reading it with her. And she said that she was reading it, and I'm like, hey, can I jump onto the a buddy read with you? And she was really excited for me to join her. So basically we have just read book 3. She finished yesterday as well, and so that was yesterday was the 27th of February. So anyway, yeah, we've both finished it, and I just almost typed up an essay over in Discord on it. I really like the book. I loved being back in this world again. It's been a while. It's been a hot minute since I've been in this world, because originally I read the second book back in November, I think, and then I meant to read this book in December. Then things got hectic and it just didn't happen, and so I just didn't even put it onto a TBR this year. And then when Sid said that she was going to be reading it, and I jumped on it with her, I was pretty excited to be back in this world. So basically, again, we're following the 6 main characters: Rand, Perrin, Egwene, Nynaeve, Moraine, Lan. Matt was in it as well, but we've had a few characters come back into, we had a character come back into it, which is the Gleeman that was in the first one. So Tom's back into it, although he doesn't seem to be very prominent in this story at all. He's just sort of like, he's a side character. He's with Matt. So Matt's back. In the last book, I'm not sure whether I touched on it or not, and these are going to have slight spoilers, but overall it's not going to wreck the story of it. It's just sort of giving you their storyline and where they're heading. So all the characters are separated again, and Matt was very ill. He basically, the 3 girls, Egwene, Nynaeve, and Morghese's daughter Elaine, were taking him back to Tar Valon. So because he was extremely ill, and that's where the Aes Sedai are, and so they'll be able to heal him. They think that they'll be able to heal him because essentially he's dying. That I'm like, yes, Matt's dying. We're going to get rid of Matt. Matt's back. I have a love-hate relationship at this point with Matt. Matt drives me mental. Ooh. To say the least. Just the decisions this dude makes in this book, I'm just like, just want to slap him around and go, wake up to yourself. But anyway, so Matt's back. This one was focusing a lot on Egwene and Nynaeve and Elaine and Matt. So Perrin was in it.
Moraine was in it. She's the Aes Sedai that's been in it since the beginning. Lan is her warder, so he's her guardian type thing. And so they were in it, and Rand was off by himself. Now, there was it was a really good story. It really sucked me back into the world again, and I enjoyed reading about it, but I was getting frustrated with Matt's character again because he just makes stupid decisions. But in the second part of the book, he comes through for the fans. Let's just say that, shall we? He comes through for the fans. And I'm hoping that this is a turning point. Because remember when I said in the second one that I thought that maybe Robert Jordan was writing this character this way so you had a love-hate relationship with him, so then you appreciated him more when he done something good. That's what I feel like. That in the second part of this book, he's come through for the fans and all the rest of it. I was a little bit there was some frustrating pieces in this. And I did touch on this over in the Discord, and I'm probably, because it's been, I wrote that and then I sort of just put it out of my mind after that. But basically, I was getting frustrated with the female characters that we had in it. So in the first two books, I felt like Jordan wrote Egwene as a really strong character, but in this book, he sort of put her into the background a little bit, and I'm sort of wondering why he sort of did that. I feel like maybe he's put her into the background and brought the others into the forefront, because there's something great coming for Egwene. So I'm just making a note on my videos that I'm expecting something great from Egwene, because there hasn't been a dreamer Aes Sedai in however long it is, and she seems to be able to do stuff in her dreams. And towards the end of the book, she came to a realization that she was bound, she was bound by the Black Aja, which are Aes Sedai that have gone bad, and so she was bound, and so was Nynaeve and Elaine. And so Elaine is Queen Morgise's daughter. Now, there's a lot of characters to keep track of, but the way Jordan's written this book is that you're only focusing on the 6 main characters, and all these other ones come in. So they're relevant, but they're not relevant. It's mainly centered around the 6 characters. You have to excuse my voice. We've got change of seasons, so I'll get croaky voices. So all through winter, I will have a croaky voice for some reason. And it's just the way it goes. I digress. So yeah, so I felt like he pushed Egwene to the background, and so I'm wondering if her character is going to come to the forefront in future books. I'm hoping that she does, because I think she's going to have a lot of power, and it keeps alluding to that. Now, Nynaeve and her braid, I want to get a pair of those scissors right behind me and take it off, because Robert Jordan, through this book, what is that? Seriously, those that have read Wheel of Time, what the hell is the significance of her tugging on her braid? She'll do something and then she tugs on her braid, and then something else will happen and she tugs on her braid. I cannot work out for the life of me what the hell the significance of that is, and it is doing my head in. And there's some little bit of, these are just sort of some of the negatives that I have at the moment with it. There's not too much. Although it has settled down somewhat in the first 2 books, the wheel turns as the wheel weaves is a constant repetition that is through the book. It is a phrase that Aes Sedai, and it's like when the Aes Sedai are big on this destiny, it's a wheel of destiny essentially, right? And so the Aes Sedai seem to be throwing that phrase out every time they don't want to answer something. So someone will say, question them, and then they go, the wheel weaves, the wheel turns, the wheel weaves, and yada, yada, yada. And then they avoid the question altogether. So at this point in time, we've got the Dark One, we've got the Children of the Light. These are main groups. We've got the Aes Sedai, we've got the Aiels, I think they're called. So we've got all these groups and all that sort of stuff. But I don't know who we know the Dark Ones are the bad guys, but the Aes Sedai are sketchy. something sketchy about them. And so I don't know, I just get like, I even said to Sid, like, I get the feel like, are they the good guys? Like, really? Like, they're a little bit sketchy. And Rand, like, the Dragon Reborn is supposedly Rand, and he wasn't, like, this book is called The Dragon Reborn, and he wasn't really in this book. He was definitely an insignificant character in this particular book. He was there, and he was like, they were looking for him. Perrin, Moraine, and I forget there's another character there, and Lan were on the tail of Rand throughout this book. And so yeah, I was a little bit disappointed there wasn't more, because there was just things that they alluded to that were happening in the towns that Rand went through, but you didn't really get the backstory of why it was happening and like what the significance was. Like there's a whole thing there where Rand's got apparent, like Perrin and that have come into the town, Rand's already been through, and all the town folk have got married. Like all the women went crazy and wanted to marry, and they all married. Like all these weddings were happening on one day. No real explanation. Like there was a little bit, but no real explanation. And then it just moved on to the next part of the story, or it switched over to the girls. So when I say the girls, that's Nynaeve, Egwene, and Elaine, and they've been sent on a mission to find the Black Aja, who were in the end of the second book, where they had attack the tower, the White Tower at Tavalon. So yeah, so there's a lot happening. There's no real conclusions at the moment. And then like with the Rand character, we don't hear from him all the way through the book, and then the last two chapters he's there and fighting the Dark One and all the rest of it, and it's like, well, where the hell did he come from? Because he hasn't been in the book, you know. And like, yeah, there was just some questionable things in this one, but I did thoroughly enjoy it. And I'm looking forward to getting into book 4 with Sid as well. And now we're just waiting for Sid to get it from the library. I, on the other hand, have completed my set of, and I'll turn the camera around, I've completed my set. Let me just see if you can see it. Oh, look at that. There's 2 up the top as well, because they don't fit on the shelf. But that top shelf there is all Wheel of Time, and I've even got the novella. And they're all in the same cover, which is really good. So I'm really happy about that. I finally finished it. So for those that don't know about Robert Jordan and the Wheel of Time, because I do know that there's a lot of people that on my channel that have never heard of it, or it's not even on their radar and whatnot. So this was written, this particular book 3 was written back in 1992 by Orbit, was the publishers. 1991, but it was first published in 92. So it was written in 91, and there's 2 books before it. And so I think he started in the late 80s. I don't know exactly when he started it. But for those that don't know, Robert Jordan actually died before he completed this series, and his wife was his editor, and he had taken extensive, from my limited knowledge about him, and I'm very limited, and what I have read, apparently he was quite a prolific note taker, and he had plotted out everything that he wanted, and also his wife was his editor, so she knew where he was going with the story and all that sort of stuff. And apparently she contacted Brandon Sanderson, and he completed the last 3 books. So if you are out and about looking for these and you're trying to get the collection and you're not getting these particular ones, this is because the series had come to Amazon Prime. So these have all been republished again in this, and this makes a scene of the mountains, like 2 rivers. So he died in 2007, and then his wife contacted, from my understanding, his wife contacted Brandon Sanderson and asked him to help complete the series, and he, with all the notes that Robert Jordan had taken, and with the help of Robert Jordan's wife, Brandon Sanderson was able to complete the series and wrap it up. So we got 3 books that Sanderson actually put his pen to help Robert Jordan complete his life's work. So that's pretty good that happened, because that would have been pretty tragic to get to 2007, and he's spent, well, this was in 91, so we're almost at that 20-year mark or 17-year mark, maybe 20 years that he'd been writing it, because the simple fact was that this one, book 3, was in copyright in 91, so the other 2 were previous to that. So it's really good that it is completed, and I'm super excited that I have got all of the books. Now this one had 600, because it's got it's also got a glossary in the back, which is really good. You've got your maps and all that sort of stuff. So it just gives you the glossary just gives you all of the how to pronounce the words and all that sort of stuff. I actually have the first 4 on audiobook as well, so I've been listening and reading along. I don't know if I'm going to get the rest of them in audio, but then my husband did express interest in reading them, so I'm thinking that I might get them and just have them on my Audible. So there was 26 pages of glossary in the back of this one, and then we had the actual story finished on 625, but the books are all around the 600 mark. There are a couple of 1,000-page ones as well. 3 of them, I think, are the Brandon Sanderson ones, but there is also one that what is it, Knife of Dreams. That one's also up there as well. It's quite a thick book, but that's my thoughts on that. I'm looking forward to getting into book 4. I sort of want to pick it up today, but I have a few other books that I have to read as well. Today is the 28th of February, so we've only got 8 days until the Women's Prize for Fiction long list comes out, and so I'm abandoning all TBRs except for group reads. So I've got Middlemarch, Pickwick Papers, Count of Monte Cristo on the classics, and then I've also got a French literature one that I'll be reading. I don't know how to pronounce it, so I'm just going to hold it up for you. Then I have my cozy read with my craft group, and then I have my Discord members pick of the month with Chatty the Mad Chatterer picked this one, and it is Nuru and the Immortal Palace, and so that arrived the other day. So I'm going to be reading a little bit more middle grade in the coming months, so I can get a nice collection together. And I'm going to get Chatty to give me some recommendations for my granddaughter, because I'm setting up a little private channel where no one else will ever see it, where I am going to be reading to my granddaughter, because she lives a fair way away from us and she loves it when I read her a bedtime story. So I'm going to do some bedtime stories, and I thought these will be good to read a chapter, and she can get a chapter or 2 a night, and her mum's pretty keen for it as well. So that's all of the plans at the moment. All right, so that was the wrap up for Wheel of Time, book 3, The Dragon Reborn, and what I'm doing in the month of March. So you will probably start to see a lot of vlog style coming up, because I am going to read the entire long list of the Women's Prize for Fiction. I'm really keen to do that this year. All right, I'm going to check off for today and get back to editing, and I will check in tomorrow. Hi everybody, and welcome to Wednesday. It is the 1st of March today, and today I am starting the Candy House. I was supposed to start this on Sunday, and I basically fell into Wheel of Time. As you know, I finished Wheel of Time yesterday, so I'm pretty excited that that is done, and now I'm patiently waiting for Sid to start that so we can get back into book 4, which is a bit of a chunkster book. But anyway, today I am reading this one. Now, this is a story. It's set in 2010. I don't really know much about it. So it's from one of the most sensational and iconic writers of our time. It comes an electrifying, deeply moving novel about the quest for authenticity, privacy, and the meaning in a world where our memories are no longer our own. And it's featuring characters from A Visit from the Goon Squad. Now, I haven't read that, so I have no idea who those characters are, but apparently you can read this as a standalone. I'm positive this was mentioned. The New York Times, you know how they're different editors for the different sections of the New York Times, they pick the top 10 for the year. I'm positive that this was in the top 10 for 2022. So, but then again, as my daughter said, she goes, the New York Times is known for picking dodgy books. So. But it was the editor's choice. It wasn't like the bestsellers list or anything like that. It was just their choice that they do. So it's set in 2010. And staggeringly successful and brilliant tech entrepreneur Bix Burton is desperate for a new idea. He's 40 with 4 kids and restless, and when he stumbles into a conversation with mostly Columbia professors, one of whom is experimenting with downloading or externalizing memory. Within a decade, Bix's new technology, Own Your Own Conscience, that allows you to access every memory you've ever had and share every memory in exchange for access to memories of others. So it sounded really interesting, and like after reading that, like as I said, I didn't really know much about it. I knew that it was a new release for last year, and I thought that I would just grab it because I want to get into more new releases and stuff like that, because I read a lot about catalogs and whatnot. So this one, and it was a pretty cover as well, and it took me a while to get it. For a while there, I couldn't. I got it on audio, and I was going to read it months and months ago, and I just never got around to it. So, and then Savannah ended up finding for me while she was out and about, and she grabbed it for me, and yeah, because I couldn't find it in any bookshops and whatnot. So yeah, but now I'm going to read it. But it was supposed to be read in February, so this is rolling over into March now. I am editing today for the Craft channel, so I'm guessing that while I'm waiting for things to export and all the rest of it and get transferred, because I've got transfer files, I've got a lot of little snippets and everything because I've been setting up my Patreon, so I've been setting up a lot of those videos and whatnot. So I've got a lot of sorting to do today. So this is going to keep me company while I do that. All right, I will check in after I've read a couple of chapters. Okay, all right, so still editing, still transferring files, still doing little snippets of videos in between, but I am up to page 74. So far it's a little bit ho-hum, but it's sort of starting to get its legs now, maybe a little bit. Like, we've got one character, he was quite dynamic in it, Miles. He I don't know whether he's dynamic to me because I do like a bit of a drug fiend character, like just the stupid choices that they make. I find very entertaining. I don't know what that says about me, but anyway, not real people, just characters like in books, not real people. Yeah, so he was a little bit, he's quite dynamic in it, and see, everybody sort of doesn't really like him. And he's a little bit further on, like he was in around page 50. The others, there's one guy in this that, Alfred, he just randomly screams on public transport. He's like, it's like he wants to get reactions from people, and I think he, and like he's always the troublemaker in his family and stuff like that, always a bit of a shit stirrer. And then, of course, there's Bix, who's the main story is about. He's looking for the new idea and everything. And it sort of starts out with him being, talking about his wife breastfeeding and stuff like that. And he's a little bit, he's restless, basically, which is what it says on the back. But these other characters that have come into it, like Miles, and there's a Jack in here as well. And
like a stranger comes to town. So, and that's on page 50. He's 49. His story started, and he is like. So I'm just going to talk about Miles because he was the most dynamic character that we've met so far in the book, and he touches on a really relevant topic of today, and that is opiate addiction. So basically, he was married. He was very distant in his marriage and all the rest of it because he was taking opioids. And then it talked about when because I don't know whether any of you remember or not, but years and years ago, you used to be able to just go to a doctor and get any drug that you wanted. And then they brought in here in this country, they brought in a national register. So any sort of codeine, opioid, amphetamine-based drugs, such as Sudafed, like that you could potentially use to make other drugs and stuff like that. They brought it in a national register, and red flags would go up if you went from chemist to chemist or doctor to doctor to try and get scripts, right? So it was talking a little bit about that, where he had regular access to these drugs from his doctor and everything, but then the national register, so it must have happened in the US as well. And the national register came in, so then he found it hard to get, he couldn't get the drugs that he needed from the doctors and whatnot, and he was just taking prescription drugs. He wasn't taking illicit drugs at this point. He didn't mention anything about illicit drugs, but then when the register happened, he found it harder and harder to get them, so then he turned to a drug dealer that was able to get them. Just explaining how they exchanged the money and all that sort of stuff, but how distant he was in his family life and his marriage, and he used to his wife used to be a lawyer, and she gave up being a lawyer to basically look after the kids and stuff like that. Well, she nailed him to the wall basically, because he wasn't being nice, he was having an affair and all that sort of stuff. Like, he's just a really morally grey character, and he's written really well because it was just, you could see it playing out, and he's coming across, like, even though he's a loser, he's coming across as a dynamic character. And so I really liked reading about him. And then, like, he's gone to visit his cousin. Like, there's all these people through, like, family and stuff that are a little bit estranged, or they've had problems, and he went to see his I think she's a half cousin, Sasha, because she used to be a kleptomaniac, and when she was making amends for that, she had actually kept all the stuff and started randomly sending stuff back to people. Anyway, he went to visit her, and she's really turned her life around, and she's making this beautiful art in the desert from plastics and all. Like, there's little underlying themes all through the book so far, and she's with a group of other people making all this beautiful art. And then one morning they go up in an air balloon, and then he realizes how much of a no-hoper he is, and why he basically wants to end it, because he realizes he's just had failure upon failure upon failure, and he just can't live with himself anymore. But Sasha's husband won't allow that to happen, and gets him the help that he needs and all the rest of it. And then it sort of just ended. So we'll hear more from Miles, because Miles has popped up in the beginning of the book with other families and stuff like that. But Alfred is another one that is he is a weirdo. I don't think there's anything actually wrong with him. He just likes to see what people's reactions are, but we're still learning about him. But like, standing on, and he made a documentary about Canadian geese, and it was a complete flop, but he met this girl through that, and she stands on the public transport with him when he starts this, like, he starts out really low and then he just starts screaming to see what people's reactions are. But we're going to learn more about that. Like, that was just one little bit that stood out to me. There's a lot more to the Alfred character than that, but yeah, that was just one little bit, like, just made me giggle. It's not so far it's not a phenomenal book. Like, it's just a story. It's nothing exciting, but we're starting to get into some other characters and whatnot. Like, I'm reading about one character right now, and he's looking at a girl, and we only know her as M.
but then he's sprouting off all these percentages and whatnot about yeah, like about, so anyway, let me just start that again. He's referring to M, and he's trying to work out who she is, and he's sprouting off all these percentages of all these people that he's come in contact with through this company when he was doing he was at a meeting, and the boss basically did this, got all their birth dates, and then did this whole spiel about how they're all really closely connected. And then he's going on about all the different people online, and whether they're gay, they're straight, whether they're non-binary, whether they smoke cigarettes, whether they're obsessed with Bix Burton, and yeah, whether they've done questionable things, and all these percentages. And I'm like, okay, that's random, but I'm enjoying it so far. I've probably rambled a little bit too long about this, but yeah, I will check in when I get a little bit further on in the book. As I said, I have been editing for most of the day. I'm starting to feel a little bit tired and sick of looking at the computer screen, but when I've been like exporting and all that sort of stuff, I've just been listening and reading along. So I thought, why not? All right, I will check in again when I finish the book. All right, so I completely forgot to check in. So a couple of things have happened this week. Basically, I started Candy House by Jennifer Atkin. I'm DNFing it. It's a soft DNF. I'm just not, it's just not gelling with me at the moment. I'm not 100% sure whether I'll get back to it. Yeah, it's just got all these characters, and the audiobook, I've got the audiobook as well, and it has an ensemble. I was just reading it at first, and then I thought, oh, maybe if I just listen to it as I'm reading along, but no, it's just not doing for me. So basically, I'm intrigued by the story, and I'm intrigued by one of the characters in here, like where it's going to go, because he seems like a really troubled character, and I was really excited to read about him. He was the most dynamic in the book, but yeah, it's a DNF, a soft DNF for me. So I'm going to put it back on my shelf. I'm going to leave the bookmark in it and see if I can't come back to it a bit later on. So I wasn't 100% sure whether I was going to like this book, although I really like the cover. The cover doesn't tell the story though. Alright, so the next one, so the other check-in that I'm going to do is I started reading Nura and the Immortal Palace. This was my Discord members pick for the month of March, and I have finished it, and I absolutely loved it. Now, I read this on my sprints on Friday. I finished it off. I started it on Thursday night, and I finished it off on Friday. Now, I don't read a lot of middle grade books, but I'm glad that I picked this one up, and I had to sort of switch my perspective from reading it as an adult to reading it from my inner child's perspective, and then I thoroughly enjoyed it. The fantasy world, magical realm that is in this is the magical realm of the Jinn, and basically we're following a 12-year-old protagonist in this who has a bit of a sweet tooth. She's a little bit sassy. She's very driven and determined, but what I liked most about this book is not only did it have the fantasy element of it, there was also which is a very heavy topic, but it was very well done, about poverty, child labour, the importance of education, and all that sort of stuff. So it was covering all that, and the author's note in the back of the book was brilliant. Just explaining that why she wanted to write about this particular topic, and it was just, in my opinion, it was well done. Like, it is, because I'm looking at these books to add onto the shelf for my granddaughter, so I want to sort of read through them first to make sure that that's not too scary, or it's not, inappropriate for her age. Maybe the ones that are a little bit older I can set a little bit higher, but as I said, we're following a 12-year-old protagonist that is essentially indentured into child labour, working in the mines. I think it's pronounced mica mines, and it's a mineral that is used in many different products, and it is actually a real mineral, and it's mostly mined in countries like Madagascar, India, and I think the other place is Brazil. It's all it is in the back of the book. But yeah, so incorporated into the fantasy and all the rest of it is this really important message about child labour and how devastating it is. And even some of the parts where she's like the 12-year-old's talking, Noura's talking about it, that, and the guilt that she associates with it, not being able to provide enough for her siblings to go to school because she couldn't go to school because she had to work because her father had passed away, and also the confliction that she has, like her mother doesn't want her to go and work in the mines, but she is in two minds about that. She doesn't want to work in the mines either, but if she stops working in the mines, then her mother has to work more, which then means, so she either, her choices are she possibly loses her life by working in the mines, or she loses her mother to having to work more and she won't see her mother. So she's conflicted in that aspect, and as I said, she feels associated guilt with not being able to raise enough money so her younger siblings could go to school and all that sort of stuff. So if you haven't read this book, I highly recommend it. It was recommended, like as I said, it was the choice for the Discord members, Dusty's Discord members, pick of the month, and Chatty from the Mad Chatterer picked this one for us, and I'm so glad that she did. And so I am now, I've been periodically today stalking through her list of middle grade March host and what they recommend for people to read, and I picked up another recommendation as well called Counting Sevens from Talia on Bandana Book Mum. So yeah, I'm really excited to get into some more middle grade. I'm going to probably, one or two a month maybe, see how I go. Like I've done the standard reads of Narnia and all that sort of stuff, but they're all from when I was a kid. So I'm really looking forward to reading more recently published stuff. And Valdania Silva, I've forgotten her name. I will link her channel up down below. I've forgotten her channel name, but Valdania reads a lot of middle grade too, and a lot of fantasy middle grade, so I'm going to go and suss her channel out a lot more. I'm already visit it quite often, but I'm going to go and visit it and just have a little bit of a deeper look at what she's recommending and see if I can't build up a shelf for Mia, because I think she'll thoroughly enjoy these sort of things. And more importantly, it's going to start a conversation about a touchy, like a pretty dicey topic, but it'll be able to approach it because she would have read about it, or I've read out loud to her. Alright, so I did read another book I completely forgot about, and this is Hanged by a Thread. It's by ACF Bookins, and it is a cozy mystery. It is the Stitches in Crime series. So in this one, we are back with Paisley and her little toddler, Sawyer, and Santiago, who is the police officer, and all the other people that are in the book as well. So her dad, her stepmom, and other various characters. But Paisley is teamed up with Sol this time, who is her best friend's uncle, and he owns a construction company, and they've teamed up together, and they're going to progressively work together going into the future. They've decided to go into partnership together. So they are at a old cannery / printing place, and she knows that there's this printing press in there that she wants to salvage. I forgot to say, she is a salvage expert as well, and also a historian. And so she's been getting a lot more work through her historical newsletter to be able to salvage more things. And so, yeah, and she also cross stitches. So it's a book close to my heart. But what I like about this book is, this series, is it's not like your regular cozy mysteries where generally, they find a body and then that person that found the body goes off and sleuths on their own. Paisley actually works with the police. She's also, there's a developing romance between the police officer and her as well, and it's a very sweet one. Like, he's very sweet. There was very sweet moments in this book, and yeah, and Sawyer is just the cutest and gives me lots of little laugh out loud moments, and there's been a bit of ew moments, like, yeah, there was one part in the book where she said that she went to sleep beside her son, and then she woke up not only with her own drool, but also Sawyer's drool on her cheek, and I'm like, ew, didn't need to know that. But yeah, so this one also has the topic about transsexuals and her family not accepting her for who she is, and it just covers all that, and the damage that people can do that the parents can do to their children, not only the transgender child, but also the other children in the family. So there's a little bit of, it's not in depth, but it still touches on the topic, and it's enough to get you thinking and possibly learning more about it and whatnot. So I'm really liking that Bookins actually does that. Like, she touches on some pretty tough topics and relevant topics too. So I'm really enjoying the series. So I'm looking forward to book 4 and finding out what that is about. All right, so I should have thought it through before I held the camera like this. Probably should have got a tripod, right? So the other one that so it's Sunday, and so that means that we are at the bingo prompt again. And this week I'm reading Girl A. This is by Abigail Dean, and the prompt was to read a book with yellow on the cover. It is a debut novel, and basically I got this in the book grocer box back at Christmas, in the Advent book grocer box. It's a box that you can get here with books in it at Christmas time, and obviously they have them throughout the year. You can get $100 and you can get 16-17 books, so it's a good buy. And so I've been, for the last couple of years, getting the Advent box for myself and for Savannah. The year before, we got a really good selection of books. This year we both got the same boxes, so I'm thinking this coming year I may end up buying a box, leaving it a couple of weeks, then buying another one, see if it's the same. Or just to ask them if they're all the same. I don't know, because there's no point in us doubling up on books. I might just get her something different than having them all wrapped. So this one, I read the blurb. This was day 22. So if you want to go and look at the Advent, it was day 22. But basically it's Lexi Gracie doesn't want to think about her family. She doesn't want to think about growing up in her parents' house of horrors. And she doesn't want to think about her identity as Girl A, the girl who escaped. When her mother dies in prison and leaves Lexi and her siblings the family home, she can't run from her past any longer. Together with her sister Evie, Lexi intends to turn the House of Horrors into a force of good, but first she must come to terms with her 6 siblings and with the childhood that they all shared. So I haven't started this yet. I'm about to open it up, so I will check in and let you know. And I'm hoping that I'm going to get it read today, because I am about half an hour out from reading with Merb's reading sprints, and she sometimes tends to go for a little while, so I'm hoping that she'll be on for a while and I'll be able to get this book finished, and then that means I can wrap up the vlog. But I will check in when I have read some and let you know how it's going.
Comments. Okay, so 6 people, so hello. Say hello in the comments.
Yeah, this book is going to be heavy. Wow. It's gonna be heavy is all I can say. I don't want to give anything away. I just read the first chapter and it's already a bit heavy. Not a bit, actually a lot heavy. Yeah, I couldn't even imagine. Anyway, I'm gonna get back to my book. Okay, so update on Girl A by Abigail Dean. Wow. This has some heavy content in it. Okay, so just so you know, it's got child abuse, torture, by their parents, being held captive, and we're now finding out the backstory, basically. So I'm not 100% sure where the story's going, but the main protagonist is Girl A, which is Lexi. So the reason that it's Girl A is because she escaped, and she's the eldest girl. So there's Girl A to C, and then there's boy A to D. So 7 kids in total. And in the first chapter, as I said, it was pretty heavy. It sort of, you knew that it was going to take a turn, because the girls were, Evie and Lexi were imagining escaping from somewhere. You didn't know exactly where, but you knew that they were thinking about escaping from somewhere. So this is where she's older, so this is a long time after the fact, and her mother has died, and so she's had to go. Lexi is the main person telling the story. So basically, as we know, they've inherited the house from the back cover, and she's gone to England because her mother has died, and she was in prison. And she got like, you knew it was going to take a real sharp turn when the director of the prison goes, here are some funeral homes for you to work out what to do with the body, where you'd like it to be buried and all that sort of stuff. And she goes, Lexi goes, there's been a mistake. I'm not here to claim the body. So her mother is going into an unmarked grave. And then we go on from there. And so we're having, periodically, we're getting backstory. It's not so much flashbacks, it's more just backstory of each of the siblings. And it's being told from Lexi's point of view, like she's telling the story. It's pretty heavy content, but it's not constant heavy content. So there's a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Like it comes back to the present time, and she talks a little bit about, you know, what she's doing right now and all that, meeting up with friends, because it's been a long time since she's been in England, and right now she's in London. And there's little bits of speculation that maybe one of the kids didn't have anything done to them, you know, and all the kids were adopted out. I think the youngest child was only 10 months at the time, and I don't think he's ever been seen again because they cut all ties with the family and all the rest of it, because he was young enough to recover from it, like anything happened. So I'm not 100% sure. Like it is jumping around a little bit, but not bad jumping around. It's necessary to do it because we're getting that backstory of each sibling and their little idiosyncrasies, you know, and the nuance of their character and why they make the choices that they're making and stuff like that, but without going into extreme detail. Like there's no graphic detail in this. But I'm about halfway through, or page 100, it's not halfway through. I think there's 360 pages in this, so about a third of the way through, let's call it that, because I'm a little over 100 pages. I'm liking the story so far. I mean, this author's only got one other novel out, I assume, because she was at the front of it says this was her debut and she was working on her second novel, so we'll see where the story goes. I'll check in soon. I'm still on Meredith's sprints. We're on the second sprint, so I'm not doing too bad. Alright, I'll check in soon. Good morning, everybody. It is Monday morning, and I should have finished this book yesterday to finish up my vlog, but anyway, we're here at Monday morning. It's pretty early in the morning. I've just woke up after an extremely late night. I had planned to go to bed early. I had planned to have this book finished yesterday. I had a lot of plans that didn't go to plan, and here we are this morning. So I thought I would do this so I can just wrap this vlog up and be done. Alright, I have my morning tea. I'm sort of trying to limit my coffee at the moment because I'm not sleeping very well, and I think that is probably the problem. But let's talk about Girl A. Now, as you've seen from my other snippets, the first chapter, wow. I'm like, wow, we're going to go on a ride with this book. And then as I read on, there's a lot of stuff to unpack in this book, and I didn't know, like, it's heavy content. For me, I felt it was heavy content. For some other people, it might not be that heavy, but just the premise behind the story and whatnot. So I think I may have mentioned in the previous check-in that this had child abuse in it, and it also had like child captivity. So basically what is happening is we're following Girl A. Girl A is the eldest girl. There's like Girl A to C, and then there's boy A to D. Okay, so there's 7 kids in total. Now the story, as I said, starts out pretty heavy. That first chapter was like, holy crap, I'm in for a journey. And then it sort of settled down somewhat, but it still had that snippets of stuff. And I think, as in the other clip I said, it goes back, like we're learning the backstory of what happened and all the rest of it. Now, throughout most of the book, there's these little smatterings of what happened towards the end before she escaped, but leading up to that and what happened and how her dad had gone a bit crazy. And I think it was like, yeah, so we had girl A, which is Lexi, and then there's also Evie and Delilah, which are the girls, and then we have Ethan, Gabrielle, Daniel, and Noah. And so we have the 7 kids, and Lexi is the one telling the story. Her mother has died. We find this out very early in the book, in the first chapter. Her mother was in prison for what that had done to them, and she had died. So it's years later, they're grown up and all the rest of it. So at the time of her escape from the House of Horrors, she was 15, 16, around that mark. And so we're learning about her previous 16 years and how they ended up to this point where they were essentially held captive and were being starved and abused and all the things that were happening. So I'm guessing her father was like a little bit of a conspiracy theorist in a way, because he felt that like the powers that be were like, and it wasn't really focused on, but I'm guessing that's his background, because he was quite religious, and he was, the authorities were always out to get them and all this sort of stuff. But they had somewhat of a nice family, and like it gives the mother's background, then it gives his background and how they met and how she loved that story of how they met and all that sort of stuff. And I won't go into details, but yeah, she loved that story and all the rest of it. But as time went on, he was starting to become a little bit more fanatical, and eventually, he lost his IT business, and then he met up with this guy who was a preacher, but then he, and all this sort of stuff, and how he sort of idolized him, and then he wanted to become a preacher as well, and he opened up this church, and around that point, something happened in the book which changed the direction of their life. Like at this point, they had been going to school, they had a hard life, and their father was somewhat domineering at this point. There wasn't a lot of abuse at that point, but he was very domineering, and he did have corporal punishment ideas. So, if someone done something wrong, they did get in trouble, and 9 times out of 10 it was a headshot. And so basically, yeah, it just follows that story. And along that story, she is, because they've inherited the house, and she wants to turn it into a community centre, her and Evie, and want to turn it into a community centre to help the community, to put a positive spin on what happened in the house, because it's quite a well-known house, because it was 7 kids that were held captive and tortured and all this sort of stuff. From them being captured, being held in captivity and whatnot, there's little snippets about each of the children and what they went through, but you don't go into great detail. So that's sort of what let it down a little bit. Not that I wanted the great detail, but it did let it down. I think it could have been developed a little bit more. There could have been a little bit more said. And there was some stuff that went on with Ethan that you sort of found out at the end, because like throughout the book you're thinking, why didn't Ethan, was the eldest, why didn't he escape? Why didn't he get away? Why didn't he try to? Why was it her? She was chained and all that sort of stuff. And you end up finding out like how the progression of how it just started out softly and then it ended up in chains, and how like he just started conserving everything, and he was paying too much for water, so they were only allowed to shower once a week, and then the problems that arise from that, being a female. I'll let you work that out. There's just all these little snippets. Now, everything that I've told you right now is not a spoiler, okay? There is so much more going on around those little snippets and whatnot, and how he gets to there. I think it's a good book. Like, it kept me turning the pages. As you have seen, I was on reading sprints yesterday. I wasn't on there for the whole time, but I got a fair chunk of the book read. And I took the book with me to the kitchen while I was baking. Like, I actually couldn't put it down, even though it was heavy content. And it's not usually something that I like to read about. I don't like to read about heavy child abuse. Like, I don't like child abuse at all. That's come out wrong. I don't like child abuse at all, but sometimes it's in a book and it's only briefly touched on, whereas this was the whole book. That was what it was about. And it's also about her story, like her finding closure and acceptance and all that sort of stuff. So it's a little bit of story of there's a little bit of hope in there that she, you know, and the smatterings of what happened to the kids after the fact and where they all ended up and how they, each individual struggled. Now, the book has, for those that don't like long chapters, it has long chapters, sort of. So, for instance, that is one chapter just there, okay, and it's Ethan, boy A, and then it's Delilah, girl B. Okay, so, because that's how, when something like that happens, that's how the police identify who they are. They have their name, like they just go A, B, or C, and then they'll eventually put their names on it. So, Delilah's one, it was quite lengthy as well. So, there's, you know, they've just broken up, but in saying that, as the chapters are done like that, they do seem long, but you're going backwards and forwards, so you're learning a little bit more about the parents and why they did the things they did and what was happening to the kids at that particular time, and then it'll come back to Lexi right now and what she's trying to achieve, because she's got to get the signatures of all the kids to say, yeah, that's okay, because they've all been left the house, like equal shares of the house and all the rest of it, so they get to have a say in it and all that sort of stuff. And there was $20,000 as well, so they have to sign off on it, and she's been made executor of the will. So yeah, so there's a little bit of bits and pieces going backwards and forwards. It's a great book. Like, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I couldn't put it down, but it does have heavy content, and if that's not something that you like, if you don't like long chapters and you don't like going backwards and forwards and you don't like reading about child abuse, then this book is definitely not for you, okay? But it is a good book. If that's something that you're comfortable with reading, I think you'll thoroughly enjoy it. It is definitely a page turner. That's why it's got a 4-star rating from me, because anything that keeps my attention and makes me read it in a day, 364 pages, granted. Well, technically it has been a day because it's only been 24 hours, not even 24 hours since I started it, because I started it at 11 o'clock yesterday morning and it's only 8 o'clock this morning. So yeah, but that is Girl A. This was a debut novel as well. I think I mentioned that. Girl A by Abigail Dean, a 4-star rating from me. And if you like that sort of thing, I think you'll enjoy it. But I am going to wrap this vlog up for today. You are going to be seeing a lot of these styles of videos through the month of March and April, because I am reading the long list and there are 16 books in that. So as I finish each book, I will be talking about them. Will my thoughts be coherent? Probably not. Will they be first thing in the morning? More than likely. So anyway, that is it from me today. Have a wonderful day, everybody, and I, as always, keep turning those pages, and I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.